announcing some mega projects that cost billions and some might not be practical and might end up burdening the right further. Save Cebu, a two-pronged strategy. One speaker, Cebu and many smaller towns in central regions of Sarawak, such as Sereke, Bindango, Kanawai, Jurau, Pekan, Taming, have not seen much growth in the past 15 years. People, especially the youth, are moving out because of the lack of opportunities. Cebu is strategic location and hardworking population, used to be the number 2 town in Sarawak, and the town that is home to the most numbers of banks, such as Hokwa Bank, Jogerian Finance, Komin Bank, Watap Banks. It used to be centers of timber industry in Sarawak and Malaysia, but now it is known to be a town following the footsteps of Sereke and Bindango, where youth move out and only the old stay put. Sawmills are closing down in Cebu, shopping complexes and shops are vacated, new shop houses are left vacant. Yaya College buildings have been reduced to 200 from the peak of 1,000, and youth are moving out once they left secondary school. But what have the government done to reverse the downtrend and help bring back growth for Cebu and its surrounding town? What are the plans put in place to bring jobs and business opportunity to the central regions of Sarawak? As far as I know, nil. One speaker, I'm now proposing something that can bring tens of billions of revenue without asking the government to pump in billions and without cutting down our natural forest. All the government needs to do is to open its ears and mind to the ideas and formulate policies in support of them. Our government policies should be people and business friendly so that the private sectors can play the parts to bring the businesses and economic developments to Sarawak and Cebu. One speaker, I'm talking about rubber wood and rubber-based industry. Our Deputy Chief Minister, Dr. Ahmad Al-Ghazes, on 20th March 2017, speaking of the need to set up a master plan for the rubber industry and stated that tire manufacturers are keen to invest in Sarawak if the state has sufficient rubber plantation to support the industry. He said he was informed of this by the Malaysian Rubber Board Director General during a meeting. One speaker, our previous Deputy Chief Minister, Dr. Patinggi, Alfred Jabu, has stated in 2013 that another 20,000 hectares of land has been opened up for rubber plantation in Sarawak. In addition to the existing 16,000 hectares of mature plantation and 8,250 hectares which has been cultivated in 2012. He further stated the government has targeted to open up 250,000 hectares of rubber plantation across the state by 2020. One speaker, I don't know how many of the 250,000 hectares of rubber has been planted since our Deputy Chief Minister, ex-Deputy Chief Minister announced it. But I do know that we have not counted thousands of hectares of rubber plantation of the smallholders. One speaker, I have recently met a Malaysian who tried to start a rubber wood processing factory in Cebu. He has obtained a rubber wood export license, but he can't get a license to build a rubber wood factory or mill in Cebu. In order to obtain the production and processing license, the government wants the company to go to Daniel Manis to buy an industrial lot. One speaker, he also disclosed that the government expects every small plantation owner to go to the forest department to apply for a clearing license. This burdened the small plantation owners immensely. He questioned the needs of the small plantation owners to obtain clearing license from the forest department, seeing the rubber trees were planted by the small owners, unlike the forest wood. Sarawak has an abundant supply of rubber wood, which all of this while has been left to rot, simply because the state government does not have any idea how big is the industry done. One speaker, rubber wood and the forest wood is not the same. Rubber wood has a fragrance easily led to bacteria attack and blacken the rubber wood. Rubber wood is selected as the main choice of furniture wood due to its beautiful white lines and durability, but the processing time must be well managed. Time is a key issue, from logging to cutting. The injection of anti-corrosive chemicals and drying must be continued in one go within 48 hours. That is why factory needs to be built near where the supply is and not subject to bureaucracy. The main usage of rubber wood is the rubber wood furniture. When it comes to rubber wood furniture, the most famous is Muar in Johor. Muar is a furniture city. 80% of or more of the country, Malaysia, export of furniture is from Muar. The main furniture export is rubber wood. Furniture because of its beauty and generous grade. Rubber wood furniture is estimated to be in the regions of 8 to 10 billions. Why is Muar so successful? Because there are several factors. The late former Industry Minister, Dr. Lim King It, has done much contribution in the rubber wood industry, such as the waiver a license for rubber wood cutting. The rubber plantation owner can plant their own tree and sell the rubber wood directly to the rubber wood processing factory without hindrance. Each year, the export and local demand for rubber wood is hundreds of thousands of cubic meters. Each cubic meters generate 120 ringgit to the government state coffer, bringing in millions of tax revenue for the government. The export of rubber wood products also bring in billions in revenue. Hundreds of thousands of jobs opportunity were also created through the spin-off of the rubber wood industry. At one time, all the factories in West Malaysia can only be set up in industrial area, just like Sarawak, until the federal government revoked the above rules. Since then, all the rubber wood processing factory in Semenanjung were allowed to be set up near the rubber plantation instead of industrial zone. The government also did away with the need for license for small plantation owners to clear their rubber wood. Once these two issues had been resolved, there was no looking back, as West Malaysia rubber wood furniture bring in tens of billions for Malaysia. Rubber can also bring in tens of billions of downstream industrial development, rubber latex industry, rubber wood furniture city development, automatic harvesting rubber system, rubber glass industrial center development, and an export furniture exhibition hall. In Cebu will be a quantum leap for the development of Cebu and the whole central regions of Sarawak. My proposal here is, if implemented, should bring in not only billions in furniture export, but as well as bringing in cash to the rubber smallholder, bringing business opportunity as well as creating jobs for our youth that Cebu has not been experiencing for decades. Tuan Speaker, number two, I have to submit a Cebu Authority proposals to our CM office during the time of a late CM, Tan Sri Adinam Satem. The proposal was submitted after careful studies of the congestion in Cebu as well as the lack of road connectivities for Cebu expansion. Within the proposal was upgrading of Jalan Ulu Sungai Merah, Jalan Ikan, parts of Jalan Oyak, as well as construction a new road from roundabout Jalan Aman Wong Kee Woan to Jalan Tunku Abdul Rahman near JPJ Cebu, and another new road linking Teku to Kemuyang area. Tuan Speaker, there wasn't any new road being built in the past 12 years, which speaks volume of the pace of development of Cebu or the lack thereof. Most of Jalan Ulu Sungai Merah is actually in the state constituency of Nangka and not in Pahlawan. And thousand units of houses have been built over the last 10 years, and yet there wasn't any upgrading of the road to a two-way carriageway, and you can imagine the traffic jam every day, especially during the early morning and evening. Jalan Igang, on the other hand, connects the industrial estate of Sungai Merah to Sungai Merah Township and other parts of Cebu. Each day, this road, which is still a small single carriageway, is jammed out because there are thousands of heavy equipment and heavy vehicles flying along that road because of industrial needs. The government has ignored the call for the upgrading of Jalan Igan into a dual carriageway for years. Why is it so difficult for the state government to grant 70 million for the 5-state constituency in Cebu? What I proposed wasn't for my constituency alone, but also include for the need of Bukit Asset and the 3 state seats held by BN, i.e. Dudong, Bawang Asang, and Nangka. I guess the BN can explain why the proposal was submitted by DAP Rex and thus would like to withhold the proposal even at the expense of the BN constituency. The whole proposal was only 70 million as compared to the billions that the CM proposed for the LRT in Kuching, Samarahan, and Seriam. Madam Speaker, if the government can implement the two-pronged strategy that I proposed, then Cebu development could just take off after such a long wait. Instead of knowing only to spend money, it is time for the government to be serious about propositions that bring in tax revenue, earn export income, as well as enriching the ordinary people. improving the livelihood, and creating business and job opportunity for our youth. I urge the state government to take my proposition seriously if they are really for the riot. Madam Speaker, the next issue, the new CM chasing after the wrong shadow. Madam Speaker, our new CM has tried very hard to outdo his predecessor, the late Tan Sri Adinam Satin, by announcing several major projects that will cost billions. I understand his frustration when everyone still talks about our late CM contribution to Sarawak. But the new CM must remember that the BN election promises, including taking back our autonomy, 20% oil and gas royalty, and regain those rights that were eroded under the BN administration. The new CM must first accomplish what the late CM left behind and not try to outdo his predecessor at whatever cost. The government's announcement years ago that Sarawak corridors of renewable energies will create 2.5 million high-paid jobs for Sarawakian and much business spillover for the town along the corridor's score. But what is the actual score on this, Madam Speaker? I doubt that there were even 5,000 high-paid jobs being made available to Sarawakians since its inception, the score. Isn't it the fact that the state government has put all its hopes and bank on the hopes for Sarawak development based on score from its creation in 2008.
Point of clarification, please. You want to clarify or is it point of order?
Injury time, you give it to me?
Can I?
Yeah, I'll give you.
Okay.
Can I intervene?
Yes,
for a
sir.
moment?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just would like to have some clarification on the word that Yang Muhammad had just said. Something to the fact that the Yang Muhammad commentary has tried very hard to outdo. The word is to outdo his predecessor. I believe this word could cast some improper motive, and unless it's rephrased, I think it's
how would you rephrase it? I think outdo is something very positive. I think all the new chief minister, new leaders will try to outdo his predecessor. There's a good competition.
Yes.
I don't think there's an issue, this petty issue, please. Okay? Madam Speaker, I continue. Okay. I doubt that even 5,000 high-paid jobs has been created since the creation of SCO. Isn't it the fact that the state government has put all its hopes on Sarawak development based on SCO from its creation in 2008 to 2014? It had all the while been the BN government central team on Sarawak developments, and then suddenly it dropped out the limelight, and we don't hear anything about SCO anymore. The government has invested so much in SCO and planned the construction of 12 hydroelectric power dams to justify it because of SCO. Now it seems the government has given up SCO together because I never hear anything about SCO anymore. The new CM has to give some Sarawakian assurance that we are not giving up SCO and what are the future for SCO. Madam Speaker, I wish to remind our right honourable Chief Minister that there is something called Sarawak budget, which is as a finance minister, he has a table and has to be passed by this house before the executive can set aside the money needed to finance the projects. This is more so when we are talking about projects that could very well wipe up whatever reserve we had accumulated over the decades. Madam Speaker, let us remind the executive or the cabinet that they are subject to a scrutiny of this house. Ours is the democratic system of government based on Westminster model, and the Constitution has therefore vested the power over the purse in the hands of the chosen representative of the people. No taxation without representation is thus the cardinal principles of system of government. Prudent budget planning by the executive to be scrutinized and passed by the legislature is the constitutional obligation of the government, both at the parliament and in this house. Legislative prerogative of taxation, legislative control over expenditure, and executive initiative in planning the financial matters are some of the fundamental principles of the system of parliamentary financial control. Madam Speaker, our new CM has announced the fluent project that cost billion, purchase of Pahlawan Dam through SEB for 2.5 billion, and another 6 billion in financial liability in the form of debt for the said company. 2, the setting up of Sarawak Development Bank. 3, the implementation of 20 TB high-speed broadband. 4, the implementation of LRT, which we know will cost billion, but non-disclosure by the CN so far, 5. The setting up an Upper Region Development Authority, and 6. The Great Piping Water Delivery System. One Speaker, without putting executive to account, our state reserve could be wiped out as soon, and our budgets in deficit in the years to come. Don't reform, One Speaker. One Speaker, speakers are the key figure in the democratic process and should be politically impartial. Say the Sultan of Selangor, Sultan Sarafuddin Idris Shah, at the openings of the 3-day 2017 Conference of Parliamentary and State Assembly Speaker of Malaysia on the 13th of May, a few days ago, 2017. The Sultan also said that Speaker should not take side, but it is the ruling, be it the ruling of the opposition. He further allowed Speaker Hanayo to make it compulsory for the opposition leader to lead the Public Account Committee in line with other Commonwealth countries. Mr. Speaker, there is no arguing that ADUN Sarawak needs reform so that the Westminster parliamentary system, where there is a separation of powers among the legislature, judicial and executive, is preserved. Parliamentary reform should be the sole prerogative of the Parliament and not contingent on executive or cabinet approval. Under the Westminster Parliament system, the Speaker is the leader of the House, while the CM is the head of the executive or the cabinet. I urge One Speaker to consider setting up a special select committee to look into ADUN reform, including, among others, 1. Appointing the members of opposition to head the PAC, 2. Removing certain restricted standing order, such as Standing Order 23(5), that a motion which directly or indirectly involve any grant, charge, expenditure, release, remission, or compensation should be treated as seeking grant, charge, whatever, unless the said minister signify in writing that it does not go beyond what is incidental and not a substantial nature, having regard to the purpose of the motion. This gives the executive too much power. We cannot do anything. Number 3, in the notice of question as per standing order should be reduced to 10 days instead of 14 days. Number 4, all questions either for oral reply or written reply should be given the answer during the current sitting and not waiting until the eve of the next sitting.
A member for Pahlawan, I think a ruling has been made on this motion.
No, I'm talking about the reform that I proposed. Okay, I'm not asking for executive, just a proposal. Okay, and the 5, Standing Order 26. The minister must answer the question raised with all honesty and not be saved by the Speaker by refusing to answer the question. With that, I conclude. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yang berhormat for Samalaju,